Hello and Happy New Year to you and your family from everyone here at Dime. I can't believe we are in 2023. And do you know this is over 200 episodes of Between Friends? So thank you for your continued support and for joining us every week, every Thursday, that is. 2023 is going to bring some changes, and they're good because it's an increased awareness, an increased presence on our live episodes during the month of every month. So in order to be notified so you don't miss an episode, let's just take this a quick minute to view this video so you can make sure you always know when we're going live and what we're talking about.
We want to make sure you are being notified every time we go live on Thursdays at 1 p.m. And here's a quick tutorial on how you can set up your live notifications. First, on your homepage, click on the search button. Look for us. Click on the three little dots on our page. A pop-up will appear. Select on Manage Follow Settings. Click on Live Videos and enable notifications. Make sure they're all set to all. Now you're all set.
Isn't that easy? I mean, it just takes a moment to do that. And we would really appreciate it because it lets us know how many of you are interested in what we're talking about. This year, you're going to enjoy a twice a month software lesson from my friend Ashley Jones. She'll be doing that on every other Tuesday starting in February. So make sure that you tune in, for her sessions. And we'll be sharing more information about that coming up. But today, as you are aware, I promised we were going to talk about piecing in the hoop. And I am really excited to talk about piecing in the hoop because many of us are embroiderers. And if you're like me, maybe you struggle with getting your patches cut in the proper size and angles and all of that. And you also have points maybe that don't match up, or you have seams that are stretched out of shape. So piecing in the hoop can eliminate all of those challenges because we let the embroidery machine and digital files do the hard work for us. But you're probably wondering why I have those four particular blocks shown on the screen, because they really don't go together, right? I probably wouldn't put them in the same quilt. Well, I'm just tickled to share with you a new product that I spent an awful lot of time designing, and I'm just so excited to share it with you. And that's our 4 Seasons mini quilts. So it's a panel of fabric, and you get everything you need to make each of those 4 panels. You're going to start with the winter, jump to spring, summer, and then fall. I mean, you'll even find the binding fabric and the backing fabric. So let's just take a look at each individual one. Here's winter, probably one of my favorites. I love that striped binding, but look at that block. That is pieced just perfectly, right? And now you're maybe a little concerned about the placement of the word winter on that top arched panel. And, how do we get the scarf and the hat on the snowman? Well, you're going to love how this goes together. It is super easy. I mean, I've taken the guesswork out so that you can nail this on each individual panel. Here's spring. So instead of the eye in spring, we have a bird cage with a little chickadee singing her heart out or his heart out, right? Isn't that fun? And of course, that block, I love that tulip block. It's just adorable. And then summer, pair of sunglasses, no harm with a pair of sunglasses that just screams summer. And the sailboat block, boy, does that look complicated. But really, it's not. You'd be surprised how easily that goes together. So let's take, and then autumn, our colors turn a little deeper. But again, we have some really cute little lovebirds up there in the top arched panel. And you're just really going to enjoy how this all goes together. But I know that I promised we would talk about piecing in the hoop. And what a deal this is. It's $69.99, comes with the fabric panel. all the embroidery designs that you need to decorate each of the panels, piece the blocks. It even comes with cutting files of those blocks. So whether you use a digital cutter, you'll find SVG and FCM files for your digital cutters. You'll also be able to print the patch template so that you can cut it out. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that in a moment. But let's talk about those 3 points: the prepping the fabrics, the cutting the patches, and then of course the perfect stitching. So this focus is for the piecing in the hoop. And GK, you love the blocks. I know I do too. They're really fun. I mean, they're very versatile. And once you have those embroidery designs, you can use those designs on any fabrics at all. So you can, just get as creative as you love. Betty Turner, you love to piece in the hoop. I do too. It's so precise, and it's kind of like doing a jigsaw puzzle, right? It goes together piece by piece, and it's so rewarding at the end when you take it out of the hoop. It's complete. I just love that. So let's see. Tina wants to know, what size hoop do you need? A 6x6 or a 6x10 hoop is the minimum size that you can use to make these projects. Yeah. Dawn, you like these? You think they're awesome? I do too. Just love them. They're super fun. Okay, so let me see where I am. Prepping the fabrics. Well, let's take a look at the fabrics first, right? So let's go to the overhead cam. This is, it's a panel of fabric that's when you purchase it, and so you'll pull it out and you'll cut it apart. And I've already done that so that you can take a look at the parts. So right here we have this spring. So this is my finished panel. Oh, and you're probably wondering, well, why is it arched? It also comes with a metal stand, which actually ships flat. This bottom part is flat, and then instructions are included, and you just bend it up so that it can stand on a surface. And all of these arch little projects fit right over that. So throughout the year, you'll switch out the panels, spring to summer, summer to fall, and so forth. So here is our spring panel, the fabric itself. So as you can see, here's my finished arch, and here's the arch. When you add in the bird cage and the birds, it really fills it out, decorates it really lovely. It also has quilting. That's part of the embroidery design. Here is our panel for the side panel. And we have all the little birds. There's custom quilting, each of these little picket fences around the birdhouses and the stipple, and even around the leaves. Now, I know you think, oh, you couldn't possibly do that placement, but yes, you can. I'm going to show you how. And then we have 3 different fabrics for our tulip block. So here we have the grass, the green, and then of course the flower itself, and the blue for the patch. You'll also find that there is fabric for the back of the project. And, same with the fall, same idea. So, and there's our finished fall panel. We'll bring that out just so you can get a closer look at it. Isn't it fun? Right now we might not be excited about these colors, but come late September, that's exactly what we want, to be showcased in our homes. So I thought maybe we would take a look at the winter panel. This is my favorite, I think. I love the word winter in the snowy landscape. I think that is just adorable. I like the bold blue and yellow on the star. And of course, the snowman, check out his panel. I want you to see what he starts as. So he starts just with a snowy landscape, the 3 circles for the body of the snowman, and you are going to add in his arms, his hat, his face, his buttons, his scarf, and all that quilting. And there's even some accent quilting in the snow. So you're probably wondering, how am I going to master that? Well, there's arrows, green arrows that have been printed on the fabric. And we just ask you that you insert a pin into each arrow just to extend that center, off the fabric so it's easier to identify. And then you're going to stitch the first color of the embroidery design, and with no-show cutaway stabilizer, and we like to use the no-show light, but you of course could use the normal regular size no-show, and then lay a piece of batting on top and stitch color 1, which is the placement guide. And you'll notice it has a notch on each side of the panel of the embroidery design. And then you simply take these pins and place them over the notches, just making sure that they're aligned, all 4 sides. And then I do suggest that you pin it in place. And the next step is going to be a tack down. So you can look at the embroidery design and decide where to place those pins. If you put it in the body of the sky, in the center, you definitely won't stitch over it on color number 2, because color number 2 is just going to be a tack down. Then you can remove those pins and follow the color sequence to do his arms and, the buttons and the hat and all of that. And then the quilting is last. Isn't that fun? So much fun. And then you take it out of the hoop, and there's instructions on how to trim it. You'll make all 3 pieces and then seam them together with the provided binding. So that comes, a strip of fabric is in that panel, and you even have an option to use the stripe, or maybe you'd like to use a green fabric. You could use either one. You could also substitute the green for the gold in the star. And you could even use your own fabrics, but what's the point of that, right? Because we've already provided everything with you. So when I am preparing my fabrics for this panel, I cut for the side panel and the top arch. I just cut rough around the outside. I'm not cutting on any line. In fact, I want some excess fabric around that panel. It's just going to make handling it easier during the embroidery process. You'll have more fabric to pin to the stabilizer. And then, of course, after all the embroidery is done, you'll know where to trim away the excess. So don't cut close, in the beginning. You don't want to do that. Leave some wiggle room, lots of extra fabric out there so you have something to secure in the hoop. But that just makes it just more user-friendly, right? We always want our experience in the embroidery room to be fun, not to be a challenge or frustrating. Our whole goal is to make it super fun. So I see there's a lot of questions. So let me kind of take a look and see what questions they are. Let's see. Someone's asking, are we going to be coming up with in the hoop for 5x7? Well, we'll keep that in mind for sure. Absolutely. And Sybil, you love that the centers are printed on the design. No, that was kind of a stroke of brilliance there, to be honest with you. Like, duh, we should have done that a long time ago, right? Should have done that a long time ago. And Retha, so in love with all of it. I know, me too. It's really fun. I know, it really is fun. And so GK, yes, the stands does come with one stand comes in the package. Well, it's a separate package, but it comes with your purchase. It's included with your purchase because, all of these have been created and sized to perfectly fit this arch. So, it's interchangeable. You'll be able to use it again and again and again all year long. And I imagine as you get comfortable, making this, maybe you'll come up with other ideas on how to use that arch, just a 10-inch block. It really finishes out to be 10 inches width and 10 inches in height. So kind of any 10-inch block would work on there. Okay, so let's see. What are we doing next? We're talking about prepping the fabric. So when I am working on the pieced blocks, now let's go ahead and move to that star. In the program, you're able to print out whether it's a PDF or the FCM or the SVG, you have a preview page, and that shows you in color the block that you're going to stitch, right? So here's my star block, and it has a number in each patch, and that number tells you what color fabric you are going to cut the patches from. So in this instance, I have printed the patches. Now these are for the blue fabric. I've printed them out on our print and stick target template paper. So here you can take a look at how that works. So here's, now I've printed these out. I can see right through them. So if you were using this technique on different fabric and you wanted to fussy cut and make sure, let's say a large flower was centered in each of these triangles, then that print and stick target paper is wonderful for that. So now that I have this printed on here, I would take a rotary cutter or scissors and just cut right on that outline, because the seam allowance is already included in the patch. You do not need to add the seam allowance. So it's super easy to do that. And again, they're numbered, so keep them together, keep them in place so that you know what patch is what, right? Now, these are all the same size, so that's not that complicated. But when we get to the summer block, which is, that sailboat block, where is he? He's right here. Those patches are all unique, right? We have cloud fabric and sails. These look similar, but they're not the same. So, important to keep those patches under control. So this is how I do it when I'm going to cut my fabric by hand. Now, when I'm going to cut it digitally, I do print out that preview because it gives me a color guide, and that's very helpful. But I use a product to prepare the fabric called Sullivan's Fabric Stabilizer, and it's a spray. So I spray the entire pieces, patch of fabric before I cut. And the reason I do that is because it gives such rigidity. Like, here's two pieces, two 5-inch squares from a charm pack. And as you can see here, this one's not treated. And, just like any cotton fabric, right? It's just going to fold and droop. But this one has been treated with Sullivan's Fabric Stabilizer. And look at the difference. So it really has body, but it's nice and crisp. I just love it, I tell you. But what I really love about it, when I use it to cut out pieces digitally, I get zero shredding, zero thread tails on my cutting mat. It just makes nice, crisp edges because it's stiffer than, normal. So look, I left this all together so you could see how nice and stiff it is. I don't have very few threads, stray threads coming off of my fabric. And you know what a mess that can be, right? At your digital cutter with that adhesive mat and so forth. So just to let you see what that summer top panel is. And then when you add in your quilting, and I used a variegated thread around the eyeglasses. Oh man, it really dresses that up. Isn't it fun? And of course, here's our side panel, which, doesn't have a lot of personality until we get that beautiful quilting in there. And then we have some waves stitched in the quilting and accents on the sun and the sand. So super fun, really super fun. Okay. So let's get all this out of the way, but I do really love that Sullivan's Fabric Stabilizer. I've never really been a big fan of spray products, but this one I really like. It's worth its weight in gold. It makes all that cutting so much easier to do. Okay, so let's see, what's our next tip to see? So is that stabilizer, it's better than heavy starch? I think so. Yeah, it is better than heavy starch in the sense that, first off, starch is a food product. So depending on where you live and so forth, I don't want to get gross, but it's a food product. So you can get little critters that like starch. So I try to avoid starch if I can. I've heard that from others. Sharon Sullivan, she's expressing that she likes symmetry in her projects, and kind of bothers her that there isn't binding on this side. Well, I'm one who likes asymmetrical design, so that was a personal choice of mine. But I will tell you, you have enough fabric in both the binding and also the backing that you could add it over there. Then your arch would just be a little wider, and nobody would be the wiser. So yeah. Is there much odor to the stabilizer? Not much. There's a little odor, but not much. It's not that harsh. And Candy Bray, you want to know if we carry the spray? We do carry the spray. I think if you look at the comment up or a couple above, you'll see that there's a link for the Sullivan's fabric spray. Yeah. So, and of course that print and stick Target template paper. Oh yeah, that's great stuff. So you'll enjoy using that also. Okay, so what's our next thing? Prepping the fabrics, and then so cutting. We already talked about that. So two options: you can use your digital cutter, or you can use do it by hand with either a rotary cutter, but you print out those patches. Now you can print it on the print and stick Target template paper, or you could print it on actual paper and like tape that to the fabric, or just be very careful making sure it's all aligned when you cut it out, because it is all about precision piecing, right? And if you start with precise patches, then you're in good shape. Notice that all of our patches have been created without the dog ears. So we've already removed them for you, which is, less work for you to do after during your piecing, where you have to often, trim them away later on. Okay, so now let's get to the piecing in the hoop, where we're actually really going to stitch it. So I want to give you a tip. Now, this next slide is on the sailboat block for summer. And I always suggest that you lay out your patches so that you can see the block. So I place them on a piece of paper right next to my embroidery machine, so I can see exactly all the pieces. And of course, I'm going to get a schematic, and I'll walk you through that in a moment. That's numbered and will tell you what patch goes down in position 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But it is often helpful to have those patches laid out so you can kind of see the finished block. So let's go ahead and take an overlook to the overhead cam so we can see how that block. Now, this is a stitch out of what I call the tulip blocks. Probably has a different name. But it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 patches. Okay, so there's 9 different patches. And this is how you stitch it out. So I'm going to place a piece of white underneath here so you get a better view. But I used black thread so that you could really see this. Each of the patches has a number in it, which coincides with the order that you will be stitching in. Each patch has an outline, and that is the actual outline of that patch. So as we move on, I'll show you. I have great slides of that whole process. But I also thought I would show you a tip on, first off, this is black thread, and it's very likely to bleed through your fabric. And that's not so desirable, right? You definitely want to have that schematic, and you need the numbers so you know what's happening when. So you have 2 more options. You could stitch this out in a pale color of thread with a little bit of contrast so you could see it, but yet it won't bleed through your top fabric. You can also take your fabric and, debut it and see if it's going to bleed through. And you can see, right through this pale yellow. You wouldn't have that problem with the green. You wouldn't be able to see it. So, always kind of do that test. Always do that test and make sure. But if you don't want any thread in there at all, then I suggest using a different technique, which just punctures holes in the stabilizer. Now, in this case, I don't use the no-show mesh because the holes will not be as visible. I use our piece and stitch tearaway stabilizer because, it will allow those holes to be evident. Now, I can tell you, it's a little hard to see, and like if I were to take off this green background, which I just put on there so you could get a better visual. As you can see, it's pretty hard to see, right? But, you get pretty good at this. You'd be surprised. And a lot of it is intuitive, and you have your block laid out and so forth on the table next to you. So maybe after your second or third block, you don't need that dark thread that's really giving you the guideline. And you can always also view it on your computer and also on the screen of your machine. But I kind of like this technique. I do use this a lot, and then it allows me to remove the stabilizer afterwards because it's a tearaway. So that's two good tips for that. Thread is important. And so if you're going to use it without the thread, yeah, Sybil, great. You're asking, won't your machine stop without thread? Well, many machines allow you to turn off the thread sensor. So what I do is I leave the needle in the machine, I remove the bobbin, and I remove the thread from the top. So there's no thread in the machine at all. And then I use a Baby Lock and Brother machines, and on my machine, I go to page 4 on the little notebook, and it has thread sensor on or off, and I turn it off, and the machine will run all day long. And it can be very frustrating if you think it's on, but in this instance we don't want it on, so it works out really well. Yeah, it is really fun. So let's see. Oh, yes. And those of you who came in late, good advice. Don't worry about it. You can always come. If you missed a portion of this program today, please watch the rebroadcast. So let's see. All right. What's next? Piecing in the hoop. Okay, so now we're just going to look at the slides, okay? So I'm jumping over to the winter block, the stars. And this is actually a 3 hooping, it's not really 3 hoopings, but it's 3 rows of patches that are then pieced together. So the first color is the first row, and that's going to give you patches, 1 through, well, this is 7, 8, whatever. Okay. And then you'll put down the first patch, and it will fit perfectly in that outline. The next color, tacks it down. And then we take the next patch and place that right sides together, aligning the outer edges just like you would if you were sewing it with your sewing machine. Stitch that seam and then flip it open. And this is where that Sullivan's fabric stabilizer really comes into play, because I can finger press that seam open and that fabric will lay down nice and firmly and stay in place, while the next color tacks down that patch number 2. And then I add patch number 3, same way, aligning outer edges, stitch the next color, which is the seam, and then flip it open and let it tack it down. And, and then we will continue with the 4th patch. And now column 1 is complete, as you can see. So next up is to stitch the next color for the column. And you can't really see that, but that was stitched in light thread. And so that outline is there for the patches. And it's very similar to column 1. except some of the order is different. So it's a half square triangle first, and followed by another half square triangle. And, stitch that tack down. Well, it's not the tack down, it's the seam, and then flip it open, then stitch the tack down. Next is the square in the center of the star, and that goes right sides together. And flip that open, stitch the tack down, patch number 4 and patch number 5. And now we have columns 1 and 2 complete. And we'll move on to the third column, which again is it's actually identical to the first column in a way, right? Except 2 of the patches are in mirror image, so that our star points are always going around in a circle. But there you have it. Now, the next step is, and you don't have to do it this way, but the embroidery machine will provide another design so that you can actually seam the 3 columns together on the embroidery machine. You may choose to use your sewing machine and a 1/4 inch foot, but here, I'm going to show you how you would do it if you were going to use your embroidery machine. So again, I'm sorry, but that image on the right is, it has the positioning marks for the columns, but it is stitched in, white thread. So we've stitched that. We lay column 1 down and tack it in place. And then we take column 2, place it right sides together with our first patch. Now, I'd like you to notice that at this time, batting is hooped. And that's because once we get this pieced, we're actually going to quilt it right in the hoop. And then once this is seamed, we press that open, finger press it open, add column 3 and stitch. And then the last thing that you'll do is quilt it, which, that embroidery design is included in the collection of the 4 Seasons quilt. So there's no guesswork. It's all that custom quilting is provided for each of the 4 seasonal blocks. Love them, right? So you're going to have the tulip block, you have the bear's paw for or the maple leaf for fall. We have the sailboat for summer, and then winter is the star. So super fun. I think you're really going to enjoy this project. I love it. It's such a great way to kickstart 2023. You can start off with this project. You'll have each panel you can complete in just a couple hours, really. They're so fast. The side panels and the top take under 20 minutes to stitch. They're really very quick. And, cutting out the patches takes a little bit of time, but you're going to learn an awful lot doing that. And then piecing it together, that's kind of the fun part, right? It's like a jigsaw puzzle. And then when it comes out of the hoop, it's all done. And then, of course, you will be provided backing fabric. Let me just go grab that winter one. And backing fabric, you get a generous piece of backing fabric so that you can make sure you have enough. And then instructions for turning up the lower edge, also for finishing the lower edge on the binding and adding the binding all along. So much fun. I really like this. Now, remember, when you're cutting out your panels, right, for the arch and the side panel, make sure, don't cut right on the line. Leave some excess fabric. In fact, even leave more than I did. There's no harm in that at all. More is better, because sometimes when you are seaming things together, it's better to have just a little bit of wiggle room, right? And yep, this is all in one kit. So all 4, Crystal Campbell, she's asking, I think she's asking, this is all one kit. Yes, for $69.95. And so you're going to get the 4 seasons: winter, spring, fall. Well, I have my seasons out of order, and then summer, right? All 4, and the metal stand. So you're all set. All you need to do is add stabilizer, a little bit of batting, and thread. And none of the colors are so bizarre that you can't find thread to match. So I hope that you'll take advantage of this special. It's on sale for $69.99. I'm really excited to introduce these to you. I spent a lot of time designing it. It was a challenge, I can tell you that. So you know what it's time for. It's time for On the House. But before we get to that, I wanted to share with you that I'm happy to announce in 2023, my good friend Sue Brown at OML Embroidery is going to continue to host those sew-alongs. So if you're not familiar with On the House is our free weekly design that we give away. I reveal it here on Between Friends every Thursday. And on the last Thursday of the month, we reveal a project, a free project. It's, like a small project that features a free design or maybe two. And my friend Sue Brown at OML Embroidery does a sew along, free for you. You can find her on YouTube and Facebook, and you'll just show up at her page on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. You can go to OML Embroidery to find out more information about that. And then she hosts a sew along, and she's got a blast over there. I'll tell you, a whole lot of fun. They call themselves the OML Gang. And she's been doing it for several years now. And so I'm so grateful that she continues to do that. So thanks, Sue. And I hope all of you take advantage of that. So to kick off 2023, we have a new On the House design that is so adorable. He is the llama, who we just think is charming. It's two appliques. Actually, his body is one, and then his little saddle is another piece of applique. But take a look at those tassels. Are they adorable? I love them. And the flower in his ear, so cute. The eyelashes. I can see myself stealing those eyelashes for something else. I like that. That's really cute. So much fun. So let's see. Marcia Goldsmith wants to know, will we be selling or making the pieced quilt blocks in other designs? Well, Marcia, we do a lot of piecing in the hoop here because we actually have a software program, My Block Piecer, that allows you to make your own blocks. And that is something that we'll be covering, in the future. But yeah, we love piecing in the hoop for sure. For sure. There's my good friend, my sister, Kathy Colvin, up in Minnesota. I bet it's cold up there, Kathy. Nice to have you here. And Deb B says, so many things to learn. Aren't we blessed to have all these things to learn and so many people sharing knowledge with each other? That's what I love about, doing Between Friends and also watching other folks. I learn from them. We all learn from each other. So it's a blessing for sure. Linda Burr says that llama's going to live in Colorado. So darling. And Esther Hopland, nice to have you here. And the llama is a typical animal from Peru for sure. And Sue Brown, there you go. There's our friend from OML Embroidery. She can't wait to stitch out that llama. So cute. Those tassels. Oh, I love those tassels. They are just adorable. As you remember, my good friend Deborah Jones, she's the one who oversees this whole program, and she sure does a great job of selecting the artwork and overseeing the digitizing. So my hat's off to her. She has not failed us yet, I'll tell you. Speaking of Deborah Jones, next week, you are going to be in good hands with Deborah and Ashley Jones. Now, they're not sisters, but they're besties, and they're also best at embroidery, right? So they're going to be sharing their wealth of knowledge all about that recipe, the recipe of fabric, stabilizer, and needle. So I think you're going to enjoy visiting with them next week. I'm not going away. I just have a previous commitment. So, and then I'll be back the next week. So thank you all for joining me today. We're so happy to be back here in 2023. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks, but make sure you come back for Deborah and Ashley.